All right, guys. It's been one of the stories of the season. The Nuggets have been one of, if not the best teams in the NBA in the clutch for most of the last several seasons, for most of the peak Jokic era. This season, though, they are statistically one of the worst teams in the clutch. Overall, this season, eighth in clutch offense. So, okay, but a far cry from, the top of that stat where they've been for most of the last couple seasons. Defensively, they are 29th in the NBA in clutch defense. The only team they're better than in the clutch is the Brooklyn Nets. Overall net rating, they are 26th in the clutch. It's been a really weird storyline to track this season just because it's been so uncharacteristic of Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray in this team. I'll go to you first, Vote. What's your biggest reason for why they're so bad in the clutch?
It's definitely the defense. Obviously, the stats prove that. I think we should do a little bit of a housekeeping preface and acknowledge the obvious factor. There are injuries in play here, right? Not having Aaron Gordon. And then if you don't have Aaron Gordon, you'd like to have Peyton Watson. And really more to the larger point, who you have closing any given game has changed so much over the last couple of months. That has to be taken into account, before you start levying criticism. But having said that, it just feels like the effort is borderline non-existent defensively at times, like layup lines. I think for Jokic's defense in the clutch, I used to think Jokic was a great clutch defender, right? You might see him kind of not contest every layup throughout the course of the game to avoid fouls, but he would kind of lock in during winning time. Right now, it doesn't feel like many, if any, guys are locking in during winning time on the defensive side of the ball. So it starts with defense, but the offense could be better too.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with the consistency of the players that are on the court at any given time. Like not having Aaron Gordon, not having the finale oop option is a big deal, but that's on the offensive end. And the defensive end, it's just been weird, man. Like I don't feel like anybody. There has been like sort of a laissez-faire approach, or just like we'll figure it out when we need to approach. It feels like for a lot of this season, and it's like kind of inexplicable. I don't like the more I think about it, like even hearing those stats, it doesn't really even make sense, and it doesn't fully match the eye test, but mostly because my eye test is like rooted in who I know this team is. But this is like just the weirdest season I've ever experienced, because it feels like, well, I mean, first off, there's just like, do we know the number of starting lineups that we've had, or the number of lineups that we've had to
not off the top of my head?
Not off the top of your head. Eric, it's a lot. It's a lot. So, I mean, that can't be overlooked, but it also, the two main players, Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, have themselves faltered. Free throws in the clutch are important. I listen, man. I don't know. It's incredibly frustrating. I don't know if I think it's a real thing or not, but it has sucked to sit through. I'll tell you that.
I mean, it absolutely has, man. I mean, it absolutely has. Your question about the starting lineups: 22 different starting lineups this season. Last season, they had 22 as well. So that gives you a little indication of how in flux the personnel's been. I think injuries are a big part of it, of course. Aaron Gordon, yes, you really need him in the dunker spot on offense. You might need him even more on defense just to hold together everything on the back line. Pound for pound, I think he's their best defender when healthy, just in terms of the types of matchups he can cover, his IQ, his rebounding, just his overall smarts. I think he's been missed a lot. But I really wonder if it's just something that's ingrained in this team going back to the championship season, in terms of what you were talking about, Eric, them just not really caring and having this lackadaisical approach on that end of the floor. In 2023, when they won the championship, they were 15th in defense that season. And, there's a kind of narrative out there that you got to be a top 10 offense, top 10 defense to win the championship. That was something a lot of people always had questions about with the Nuggets. Could they be a good defense to win the championship? They were 15th in the regular season that year, which fell out of the, realm of where championship contenders usually come from. But their offense is so good. And then in the playoffs, in the clutch, they could lock down defensively. That was the case that season too. So I do think this team believes, like you were saying, that when it comes time, when it really matters, they'll be okay. And I still want to believe that as well. But I think that's where that approach comes from, because they did do it in 2023 where their defense wasn't up to par for the entire season. The difference was in the clutch, they were still good.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And the two-man game was at the peak of its powers, which right now, it's interesting. Right now, it feels like the two-man game isn't, except when healthy. Jokic was certainly off to a phenomenal start. Jamal Murray obviously having the best regular season of his career. Due to injuries and then this weird kind of funk from the both of them, particularly Jokic, just because of relative to expectations lately, it just doesn't feel like you've seen them really get it going at the same time, right? And it can be so easy for them when they do. So, but part of that too, I mean, Harrison mentioned this on the show last night. The spacing is just fundamentally different. You can make some substitutions and change this. Peyton Watson is a spectacular corner shooter. Tim Hardaway Jr. is certainly a very capable shooter. So you can try to get shooters on the floor, but built into Denver's championship starting lineup was the pick and roll, Gordon in the dunker spot, and as Wynn said last night, two of the best corner shooters in the league. Not just percentages, but reputation. Defenses guarded them accordingly, and it gave these guys room to operate. So that's part of it right now. Teams certainly have an idea of how they want to guard Jokic, especially while Denver is shorthanded. This is, I still think they're capable of something more, but it is what's happening right now. It is why they're in fourth place in the Western Conference right now. And it's something that they have to figure out if they're going to remain competitive.
Jokic in the clutch this season, it's been a little weird. I think he's shooting something like 40%, 45% or so. That's down from his usual like mid 50s percentage in the clutch. I think over the last couple of games, it's just been pretty obvious he hasn't had his typical touch. He hasn't had his typical just feel from the paint. Maybe the wrist has something to do with that, I would think. Maybe the knee that he's coming back from. He's just off rhythm a little bit. But overall, also on offense, to me, it seems like they don't have the same maybe confidence in themselves even that they've had the last couple seasons. And I thought that was evident last night. Like they had a possession in the clutch against the Clippers where they ran Murray Jokic pick and roll. All of a sudden, like Murray picked up his dribble and the Nuggets didn't know what to do. Like this is a team that has scored so many times flawlessly in those scenarios. There seems to be a little uncertainty in terms of okay, how are we spacing the court exactly? What are we running here? Where in seasons past, it kind of just has felt like, yeah, we don't even need to say anything. We're all just on the same page.
I was going to say the thing that was so the crazy thing is that I don't think there's one answer to answer all of the clutch woes. It like in various times, there's a different reason why it's falling apart. Last night, both Murray and Jokic looked like shells of themselves. It was so bizarre to come off of all-star performance, or at least all-star appearance, I should say. And theoretically, at various stages, both of these guys are having the best seasons of their careers. And they both look so tentative. And when those two aren't going, nobody else knows what to do. It's so bizarre. Like everyone just kind of looking at each other. Yes, Murray picks up his dribble. It's like, who steps up at that point? Are you looking at Peyton Watts or Julian Strawther, Tim Hardaway, Bruce Brown, Christian Brown, like all these guys that are elite pieces to add to the array of weapons that you have next to Jokic and Murray. But if Jokic and Murray are faltering, and especially like if Jokic is not the guy that you necessarily expect him to be, I mean, all of the other things that you put around it, like they don't know what to do when Jokic is not Jokic. And Jokic has very, very clearly not been Jokic for since he came back from his knee injury. The reason, I don't know, but that much is not deniable.
When they didn't have him all together, you make this wholesale identity shift, how you're playing, the type of personnel you put out there, how you defend. When he's playing, but he's not the best player in the world, you can't necessarily make that same adaptation. So they're kind of in a weird spot since his return because he hasn't been the best version of himself, but they still have to be some sort of a Jokic led team.
Yeah. I don't think the defense is really going to change until they potentially get Aaron Gordon back and Peyton Watson back. I think you probably need both those guys in games, in clutch situations to really have a shot defensively. So that's something to watch out for. And then offensively, man, I think the point about Christian Braun in the clutch is a real one. He's not a good clutch player. He's not somebody you really want on the court in those late game situations. You don't call a lot of plays in the clutch. You know, you pretty much know what you're running every single time, specifically if you're the Nuggets. You're running Murray Jokic pick and roll. You're clearing the whole floor, and you have 2 shooters in the corner and 1 guy in the dunker. If Christian Braun is one of those shooters in the corner, that changes the defense's game plan entirely. You can not worry about him and just shade in and collapse on Jokic. I mean, it's part of the reason why the Thunder had so much success stopping the Nuggets last season,
right.
Or not so much, but so much more so than anybody else had, because you could just collapse in on the 2-man game with the Nuggets' lack of shooting. They have more of it this year, but you specifically need that on the court in those clutch moments. And I'm kind of worried about Christian Braun in the clutch.
I do think it makes you wonder about the sort of starting or at least the closing conversation. If it just makes it that much more simple, you put Peyton Watson in there because he's a guy teams have to guard. It's just too easy to run the agreed upon strategy of how to make Jokic's life difficult down the stretch. It shouldn't be, but it is. And I do think Brown's inability to space the floor is a big part of it.
For sure. And there's so many, like the second half, or like the part of the season where Jokic has been out, has been a revelation as far as how many shooters are actually on this team. So it shouldn't really be that difficult to fix, because it really is just should be a matter of in the clutch, in the big moment down the stretch. I mean, you have essentially your death lineup, which is Peyton Watson in place of Christian Braun. And that theoretically, alongside Aaron Gordon, I mean, that was one of the tough things down the stretch last night is you have Spencer Jones doing his best Aaron Gordon impersonation, and then you have Christian Braun trying to slow down Kawhi Leonard. And those are 2 kind of mismatches just in and of themselves. You get fouls called almost every single time down the stretch or down the court. And, that just turns into points every single time down. So it really is just a personnel thing. And the Nuggets, the most frustrating part about this goddamn season is that they really do have so many more guys on this team, and so many more guys have stepped up and shown that they have so many more skills that can be relied upon. But the situations that we keep finding ourselves in are like, man, if only. There's just so many if onlys every time. And if only we get to the end of the season and everybody is intact. Like, I still have full belief that the Nuggets have everything they need to get it done. But my God, is this stretch frustrating.
It certainly is, man. Nuggets have, a lot of opportunities here to change the narrative, though. I mean, I'm sure they'll be in a lot more clutch games to come. We'll see what happens with the offense. We'll see if the defense can hold it together. Let us know what you think in the comments. Can the Nuggets turn it around defensively? Is there any hope on that end of the court? Can they hold it together in the clutch, specifically on the defensive end? We'll see. Make sure to subscribe, DMVR Sports. Make sure to like this video. We'll talk to you soon.